out there usually because I don't agree with everything that he says. But that was a good little video they put together there, so I thought I'd include it because I came across this article right here. Kissinger defends Putin as Russian patriot. Well, who is he appointed by, right? When Swerdlow was talking about that he was picked and that the elections were a fraud, just like here in the United States. Like we can see clearly with Ron Paul's campaign, is one of these technocrats like Brzezinski, Kissinger, right? So besides saying that Putin was a Russian patriot, he went on and said, I don't think he's anti-Western. He's above all a Russian patriot who feels humiliated by the experience of the 90s. He added that Putin is very resentful of what he interprets as intervention in Russian domestic affairs. So a lot of things that may make sense, right? But this is by no coincidence. He goes on and talks about Iran, saying that he added, with such a likelihood in mind of Iran being nuclear, he said he could understand why Israel would want to strike. So Iran's already had these weapons, right? I've actually reported on that before that video that Swerdlow made about North Korea testing them and that. So they already have them. They already know that they have them, and they haven't done anything with them, even though they're floating all these ships around their shores waiting for them to attack them. So British Foreign Secretary sued over U.S. drone strikes. This is in Pakistan, where the people are really riled up, and there's a coup brewing in that country, and they have nuclear weapons as well. These are some of the innocent victims of the U.S. drone strikes in northern Pakistan, estimated to have killed as well over 2,000 people since 2004. So the British Foreign Secretary William Hague is being sued in London in a London court for allegedly assisting the U.S. to carry out drone strikes in Pakistan. Next up, we have Marshall. He's a representative in the United States. A Republican hails final passage of his bill against illegal detention. Legislator urges Governor McDonald to sign HB 1160 into law as part of the Code of Virginia. That's the individual right there. And he goes on here, says Marshall today praised Virginia State Senate for passing his bill to prevent Virginia's government agencies and employees from having to take part in illegal and indefinite detention of the United States citizens. And there's so many word games that are played, so this could still apply to the military. So the military, they may just have to hand them over to the military instead of their police. So, so you could still be indefinitely put in detention in Virginia. It just may be by the military in a military national emergency center, i.e. a FEMA camp, instead of the police holding you. It says here, Obama signs anti-protest trespass bill. I've covered this before, but just a little recent news. It says here, only days after clearing Congress, U.S. President Barack Obama signed his name to H.R. 347 on Thursday, officially making it a federal offense to cause a disturbance at certain political events, essentially criminalizing protests in the United States. It is called the Federal Restricted Buildings and Grounds Improvement Act of 2011, and it says it was passed by the House after only 3 lawmakers voted against it. It says here that it has many Americans concerned how the bill could bury the rights to assemble and protest as guaranteed in the United States Constitution. Moving on, in Switzerland, they have their own type law. Geneva resident approve tougher restrictions on protests. Residents in Geneva have approved imposing tougher restrictions on demonstrations and authorizing staff fines for violators in a referendum. A proposal denounced by a UN report, according to the AP, Sunday vote allows city authorities to impose fines of up to $110,000 on anyone who demonstrates without prior permission and who does not abide on agreed conditions. Now, this is something that's really crazy because a lot of times with these protests, they'll actually get prior approval and permits and all that with the city, and they'll go out there and protest, and they'll crack down on them anyways. So it doesn't really matter even if you do that's the thing. It's guaranteed, maybe not in Switzerland, but it's guaranteed to you by your little constitution that you can protest. So then you go out and then they say, oh, you have to ask us for your privileges, for your liberties, for your rights. You have to ask us first for those. Well, they're not rights, they're not liberties. They're privileges then, right? If you have to ask for your liberties and freedoms from the same people that are going to take them from you, then they're not freedoms anymore. I'm sorry, but they're not. So, yeah, now when you go to do that, they are still going to come out with the rubber bullets and the LRADs and the heat ray guns and the little helicopters that tase you. They're still going to have all that stuff, even if you did file for a permit, because we're not democratic anymore. I wish people would get that in their thick heads. It's post-democratic. China Parliament unveils dissident detention powers. It says here China's Parliament unveiled legislation on Thursday solidifying police powers to hold dissidents in secret prompt. And we have Chinese intelligence agencies are conducting a major covert influence campaign aimed at derailing the Obama regime's military shifts to Asia. And how are they going to do that? Well, continuing build up, China boosts military spending more than 11%. Of course, they have their little hidden budget, too, for militarizing their police and whatnot. New police surveillance drones could be armed with non-lethal weapons. I've already covered this before about tasers being wrapped around around these little drones, these little mini drones. In coming weeks, Montgomery County Sheriff's Office north of Houston says it's going to deploy a $300,000 Shadowhawk drone bought with federal Homeland Security grant funds to spy on criminals, so basically everybody, because you're all criminals possibly, support SWAT team, the militarized police, operations, and look for missing persons. So this is the source of it. Tase of our lives, new police surveillance drones could be armed with non-lethal weapons. You go all the way down to the bottom, and the CEO of Vanguard Defense Industries said at this point, non-lethal devices like flares, rubber bullets, and tear gas are only sold on military versions of the drone. Says here the department had no interest in loading lethal weapons onto the Shadow Hawk. He said that the sheriff's office was open to the idea of adding non-lethal weapons like tear gas, rubber bullets, or taser-style rounds to the drone. Then DARPA unveils drone-slaying war laser, a weapon that used to be the size of a passenger jet, now fits on the back of a flatbed truck. DARPA is unveiling the portable laser system, HELADS, and go in there and basically it's something out of a sci-fi movie, right? Like technology that has probably existed for the last 100 years. And in fact, it does, because it goes on there, says it's high-energy liquid laser area defense system. So this is just like what I've been covering recently, talking about directed energy weapons, lasers, and that. And it has been around since Tesla, creating their little death rays and stuff. And they say how they're going to test it in 2013, and remember I covered that as well. Russians tested their directed energy weapon, and it was successfully shooting drones out of the sky. So it goes on here. It says that there's actually a system already made in place by American-Israeli system Northrop Grumman. There's a video. You can go check that out. The Air Force, their ultimate goal is to equip bombers and UAV, i.e. drones, with these HELAD weaponry, lasers. While the idea of military lasers, death rays, and ray guns encourage all sorts of futurist fantasies and conspiracy theories, there will be major limitations to these weapons, saying, basically watering it down, saying there's not enough strength. And they say that about all the non-lethal weapons as what they're causing people to go deaf. They're popping people's eyeballs out of their socket. They're blinding them. You have tear gas. Actually, I think there was one woman that lost their baby from being tear gassed so much, a protester. But hey, they're non-lethal, right? Just like the ray gun, the heat ray gun. It says here, DARPA's director will soon be a Google executive, so it makes sense because Google's, in my opinion, is kind of militaristic, right? Coming straight from the Pentagon, so it makes sense that DARPA would just kind of cross hallways and go into the other office into Google. But DARPA is basically, it's a bureaucracy, or it's not really a bureaucracy because it's more like a dictatorship. They just steal funds from Americans and then transfer that to the military-industrial complex, i.e. Raytheon and Northrop Grumman, to develop weapon systems to kill you and enslave you even further. So that's the name of the game, though, of course, is using your own funds, your own resources against you. It says here, Mega Upload, a boss says, site popular among U.S. government users. He went on there and he said that his records show plenty of U.S. government